want to talk to you about one of the most difficult things that happens in recovery from an eating disorder. And that is losing the part of our identity that we had with our eating disorder behaviors and what we were trying to achieve through those eating disorder behaviors. My name is Sheena, and I'm a registered dietitian that specializes in eating disorders. And if you're interested in learning more about eating disorders or what the recovery process from an eating disorder looks like, definitely hit that subscribe button. What do I mean when I say losing that identity of an eating disorder? Well, one thing that I'm really a big fan of is giving credit to the eating disorder. And what this often looks like is trying to protect us from ridicule, trying to help us take up space in a way that feels safe, an environment that feels naturally kind of unsafe, and trying to eliminate some of those daily life stressors that just feel completely overwhelming and anxiety provoking. So, what does that even mean? Now, when we have an eating disorder, it does a very powerful thing. It stands in as a placeholder for really difficult emotions. So, what an eating disorder often tends to do is if we have any very intense emotions, such as anxiety, grief, sadness, anger, etc., the eating disorder tends to step in and quote unquote save the day. It says if we're simply able to shift all of our focus onto the way that our body shape is, the way that we look, how thin we are, etc., then we might possibly be able to alleviate some of this pain. And what diet culture teaches us is that this we can simply live in a thinner body and be more disciplined. We will get more admiration, respect, and we'll be able to better handle the world. And while these things are simply not true, no, none of these difficult emotions will go away, regardless of what our body size is or what types of foods we eat. Eating disorder gives us this false narrative that simply following the rules of the eating disorder will solve this problem. So we divert all of our attention to engaging in these eating disorder behaviors, then we have the false perception that the outcome will alleviate our pain. Now, when we're in eating disorder recovery, we lose the sense of security. We have to go through all of the emotions. We have a saying in eating disorder recovery: eat all the meals, feel all the feels. And that's exactly what happens. When we no longer have this scapegoat of simply reducing our calories or avoiding certain foods or overcompensating with exercise or other eating disorder behaviors, we have to fully tune into ourselves. We have to fully experience every ounce of that emotional distress. And we have to fully go through it because there's no alternative. There's no shortcut route. There's when we're actually experiencing those emotions. And emotions can be very hard. I like to describe emotions as this: it's going through a tunnel. And we have to go through the beginning, middle, and end before that emotion subsides. And what the eating disorder does is it kind of tries to come in and shortcut going through that full tunnel. And while this gives us a false perception of security, it doesn't actually solve that emotion. So the emotion still sits there, but the eating disorder comes in and offers that sense of safety. Now, when we're in recovery from the eating disorder, we take all of that away. And now suddenly our whole identity shifts. We're not really sure who to be. We're not really sure what we like. We're not really sure how to feel the emotions that we're feeling because we're so used to pushing these under an action, such as restricting our calories or a food group. And that is the most difficult part of recovery. Who are we without this eating disorder? What do we actually like to do? What do we enjoy? What kind of people do we love to be around? Those things are all deeply exposed when we're in recovery from an eating disorder. So, yes, things like eating the food and gaining the weight might be very challenging. But the most difficult part of eating disorder recovery is that identity shift. By the way, a lot of these topics that I discussed are heavily censored by YouTube. If you want the full, raw dialogue that I love digging into around eating disorders and eating disorder recovery, please check out my website at peaceandnutrition.com. Subscribe to the email list, and we'll really get into the nitty gritty of what it means to have an eating disorder and recover from that eating disorder. I hope that this information was helpful for you. If so, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing with a friend.